Oh man, hey, I want to show you some pictures real quick of this knife I'm about to show you. There'll be 4 pictures, okay? And then we'll show you what it looks like now. All right, everybody. So this guy, I had to buy it. I thought it was cool and unique, and it's old. It's older than anybody I know. Okay. Um, yeah. Basically, I haven't had a lot of money lately to, buy knives because the stupid hand surgery thing's quite expensive. So I kind of looked at a little bit of alternative things to purchase that really struck my interest, and I was on eBay. And I found what I think is a deal. Now, I don't really know how much of a good deal it was, but I think I paid $35 for this knife with like a couple dollars shipping. So basically for under $40, I got this guy. And to me, this thing's worth way more than $40, in my opinion. And I'll explain why. Shat Morgan bought a factory in Titusville, Pennsylvania. They started producing knives, and they came from New York to Pennsylvania. They started producing knives. I forget what year it was, 1920 something. There was 5 foremans who were fired because they were making ghost knives. Apparently, they would take the supplies, stamped knives without tang stamps, and they would finish these things and then sell them. So basically, they're kind of stealing materials and making their own knives. They got fired for it. Well, those guys, they bought a little shed. From what I understand, it was like a little shed, a little shed by a high school in Titusville, and they started producing their own knives under their name, and they called themselves Queen City. All right, and you can see here. So this knife was one of the first knives produced by Queen. All right, this was not made in the Titusville factory that's famous amongst Queen collectors. This guy was probably made in a shed next to a high school or some smaller little rinky-dink factory, and this was produced by the 5 guys who created Queen cutlery. So this was one of their popular knives that had steel bolsters, steel bolsters, steel liners, and a really decent jigged bone. It's like an amber. I forget the name of it actually, but it's like an amber bone. Okay. So, to me, this knife is very historical, and it has significance because this was not made in the Queen factory that we know of, or the old Shat Morgan factory. This was made in the 10 or 15 years before, I believe, 1933, when they took over the factory again. Because the story is they made a lot of money selling these knives. And so Shat Morgan had a problem. He just fired all of his management. Quality went down. They couldn't make sales. The Great Depression came. So the guy made full circle, and they bought their factory that they were fired from. Anyway, this guy, it still has its snap, okay? And this secondary knife is, secondary blade is actually quite hard to open. So when I got this, you see some before pictures of it. It was pretty rough, like very rough. And that's probably why I got it so cheap. Now, I learned a couple things from restoring. I say restoring, it's not restoring, it's preserving, okay? So when you preserve firearms that are of historic value, you don't want to remove any of the original finish. So I applied what I learned with knives, and I don't really know if there is a strict rule to restoring or preserving knives as there is with firearms, but I just applied the same thing. There's no heavy sanding. You keep everything that has developed. Like you see these lines, these are rust that came into this knife. On the blade here, it's forever etched. The speckles on the bolsters, that stays. That does not get restored, because if you do, you're actually taking off the original finish of this guy. So what is done is you remove the rust either chemically, which is not abrasive to the bone, or brass or any kind, if you have brass liners, which this one doesn't. So you can let this thing soak in a rust killer. Okay, it doesn't destroy the finish, it just gets rid of the rust, and that's the problem. Patina is actually rust, and if you don't control it, it will rust your knife, it will rust your gun. A lot of people say you just put oil on it. The truth is that rust is still sporing underneath that oil, just to let you know. And you can control a patina, like on a knife, where it actually kind of turns into a finish. They used to do it to old firearms. They called it browning, okay? They would brown the barrels. This is before bluing, which is also a form of rust, but is a controlled rust. I want to see what this finish looked like as best as I can. So I removed the rust, which removed the patina, which was honestly just rust. It was not cared for correctly. And I got this half decent finished knife here. Evapo Rust. No acids, VOCs, fumes, safe on skin. I mean, it's very gentle, okay? So I used that. I took care of all the rust, and then I carded it, which is basically using quad-aught steel wool, 0000 steel wool, except I have a special brush for it that I use on guns, because you spend hours doing that crap. So I put that in there, and then I just took a little bit of polish, like Flitz. No, I think I used case paste actually, and I just polished it up a little bit, and it came out pretty good. I don't know what it's worth now, but it's probably worth more than $40, especially that this thing was made between 1922 and 33 or 21. It's quite old. So the Ting stamp, I'll put a note in here, but it's such a nice knife, and I love it because of its historic value. So if I could open this, yep, my hand has been healed enough to endure it. Now, when I got this guy, one of these rivets was really, really loose, and you could actually go like this, and it would teeter-totter, like make clicking noises. So I found a piece of metal that would fit nicely in this. If you notice, these are slightly different sizes, and so I found a piece of metal that fit in here, and I gently used a punch. I'll show you to you. I think it's this guy right here, and put it over it and gently mushroom that rivet so that it held this bone scale down, because it was not doing a good job of that. This knife is kind of still sharp. I've never sharpened it, and I probably never will, because like I said, I don't want to alter it past what it's been altered. Whoever had it before me did not take the best. That is almost a nail breaker. Did not take the best care of it. I'm sure the original owner usually. Okay, so when you get these things, when you see these on eBay, they are so worn out, because people back then didn't collect these things. They used them. They used the hell out of these things, and you'll get these blades are cut out like, whoa, like there ain't much of a blade left. And the reason why I picked this guy is it actually has, like, this blade, has it ever even been sharpened? I don't know. I mean, it's been used, but it's not been sharpened, so it's relatively decent. It has half stops too, by the way. Still has its snap. It's almost 100 years old, and it has its snap still. But I noticed these things are not very used. You can see the tip is a little used up, but for the most part, you can see the outline of the knife, and it's not been sharpened past the point of no return. For example, here I have another knife that is from the 1940s. You can see how where this guy has used this thing to the point where it actually, the kick needs to be adjusted to lower the blade back into its body, because these guys back then, they used these knives, and you can see he used this thing to the point where it has lost quite a bit of metal. And this is the kick. And if you file this down, which I'm not going to do because this is such an old knife. This is actually from World War II. I'll do a video on this later. You can file this down, which will lower the blade into the body of the knife so that you can't snag yourself on that. But you can see this thing has been used. It's been used past the point of its original intentions, and it actually needs adjustment. Where this guy has not been used past that point, and it's still sitting happily where it was originally 100 years ago. Now, I hate gaps, but I really do wonder if knives back in the day had these gaps, or if this was an early knife that was made by them and it was about saving money and not about quality control, because like I said, people use these, they didn't collect them. So I kind of wonder if this was kind of the general quality you would get from a knife back in the 1920s. I'm assuming this is going to be made in the 1920s, because the Tang stamp changed, I think, in 1933, and that's after they bought the factory and moved back into the Schadt Morgan building. It's just a wonderful piece of history. I would never carry it, just because there's so much stuff I can carry instead of this. I don't want to take a chance on ruining it. To me, this thing is a survivor of it survived neglect. It survived users, because like I said, people used these things back then. The scales, I think they've shrunk over the years, but they might not have shrunk. They might have been fitted like this. You see there's gaps between the two, between the bolsters. It's amazing though. It's amazing what these guys did back then with what limited tooling they had. GEC still uses this kind of tooling to make knives, and so did Queen when they were still in business, but they're no longer around. But it's just so nice. Put a piece of oil on this thing and let it sit. I mean, if this was made in 22, yeah, in 80 years, I mean, it's going to be like 179 years old. Can you imagine that? So this is a piece of history. And for 40 bucks, it's completely worth the money, completely. And notice it has a swedge on the top. I seen pictures of these, and some of them didn't have swedges, but this one actually has a swedge on the top. And that's just so nice. Something that they didn't have to do, but they did. Such a nice, it's actually still kind of sharp too. It's amazing. These knives are just amazing. You can get some close-ups on it. You can see where the rust has actually ate into the steel. Now, you can sand that away, but if you did that, you'd be removing the original finish. And I don't know about knives, but on firearms, that's exactly what they tell you not to do. Don't take a wire wheel to it. Don't remove the original bluing. Don't, stuff like that. So preservation is, you're not changing it, you're not altering it. What rust has damaged, it has damaged. Like on this bolster, this steel bolster. You're just taking the rust off so that you can see what the best representation of what it used to look like, without having that rust there slowly eating away at a piece of history that if somebody neglects for another 80 years, what left of this thing would be, So, I mean, it took 80 years for me to grab this, not 80, it took almost 100 years for me to grab this thing and fix it up, so hopefully it'll last another 100 years. Why am I saying 80? So, wonderful knife. I wonder if I can open this guy up. The springs are still super, super springy and tight, tough. Just nice. It's high quality. I haven't showed that video. I haven't showed this to you for I think I showed on Instagram some pictures of it. So, but I figured I'd just show it to you. It's a piece of history. There's a cool website I found, which I want to make a video of, but I don't know if I have the time. I actually asked the guy and I got permission to make a video for it. But it is queencutleryhistory.com. I'll put a link in the description so you can check it out. But they have lots of historic information about Queen and Queen City, Schadt Morgan. It's a very resourceful website. So this guy, that's about it. There's not really much to show you other than what I've already shown. So I hope you appreciate the knife as much as I do. I'm a history buff, and I love knives, so it kind of just scratches 2 itches. All right, that's it. I hope you guys like this video. If you do, like, subscribe, share with your friends. Liking the video helps the algorithm. Comment if you want. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. All right, everybody. So, let's restart this.